Hi, thank you. You know, somebody reads your whole bio, then you try to introduce yourself, and you pretty much told everything I wanted to say. But thank you so much for that introduction. All right, I'm so used to like a wireless microphone. All right, so thank you guys for having me here, especially during Women's History Month. I've been doing a lot of conversations about entrepreneurship. I just came back from South by Southwest, and we did a series of events for women, especially women in technology, that was sponsored by IBM, which was a great event to really focus on women, especially Black women in technology. So we had a great conversation, and it was a little interrupted by President Obama, but hey, it was a little crowded, but it was good. So I really want to focus today on creativity is the key to longevity, because part of what I do is being creative, not only in technology, but also in branding and marketing. So here's a little bit about myself, even though you heard a lot through my introduction. So I've been in business for over 10 years, and I really focus on technology, entrepreneurship. I'm a mentor and a speaker. Yesterday, previously, I spoke with the Camden School District about career and technology, and, and did a series of workshops with them. And I try to do that at least a couple times a month, working with either high schoolers or grade schoolers, teaching them about career, but especially career in technology. And I'm a self-taught front-end developer, so I code websites, and I've been doing that probably for the last 5 years now. So really getting into the importance of there's a different way to learn technology. There's ways to go to school for it, there's ways to be a self-taught technologist, as well as a lot of online and offline classes as well. And I'm a branding expert for commercial and nonprofit companies. So as he mentioned, I work a lot with Comcast, Microsoft, City of Philadelphia, Live Nation, and really working with their online programs, their offline programs, and especially anything having to do with their community awareness programs. For instance, Comcast has a really big program for low-income families to get internet called Internet Essentials, and I really focus on making sure that every person within the neighborhoods have internet. So whether they need to go to the library or stay at home to get on the internet, we try to make sure that everybody knows about that program. So why creativity, right? Creativity is such an important thing that I've learned over these years as I'm building businesses. I'm working on two. I've had my one business now since 2009, and really focusing on what makes me excited and what makes other people excited. So creativity is something that helps you think about ideas to fundraising, when you can't find money for your business. It helps you find different partners when you're doing a project by yourself. It helps you find the mentors that are now in your life that may be with you for the rest of your life. And it also really helps you build your brand, whether that's through social media, speaking like this to other people, to become a thought leader in your industry, and also growing your network. Growing your network is really important, whether you are an employee, an employer, a business owner, self-employed. It really helps you keep that momentum going if you have creativity on your side. So I always say the difference between men and women in various industries is the opportunity given. And being a woman, especially in technology, is really important to have that creativity of how you're going to fundraise for your business. And if you're going after money for your business, you're speaking to mostly men. What type of creative things can you do to get them to understand a female-founded company and maybe a product that's only geared towards females, right? So how do you get them to understand that half of the world's females, right? You're male, the other half is female. So how do you get them to understand the importance of this product is needed? You may not need it, but the other half of the world may need it, right? So really having to create your own opportunities, improve your leadership within whatever industry you decide to go into, or if you decide to be an entrepreneur as well. So we're going to make sure that this is interactive, right? Because it's a small group, so anytime I have a small group, I ask a lot of questions to make sure you're paying attention, and I call out people in the middle of my speeches as well. So we're going to start with entering into technology. That's one of my biggest focuses, and even if technology is not something that is an interest of you as far as being in that industry, just understanding that technology is in whatever industry you decide to choose. So whether you learn it personally or at least learn how to hire for it, whatever department you decide to be in, you need to understand the computer, you need to understand the basics, and if they have a mobile application, you need to understand that as well. So really understanding creativity develops innovative ideas to obtain financial security. So as I mentioned, when you're a business owner, especially a woman, you go through the whole bootstrapping, which is a term that means basically you're using your own money, right? So the time when you're launching a business, you're using your money to keep it afloat until either you're selling a product or is worth an investor or a banker or whoever you're going after money to actually take a look at your company, right? And then also negotiating pay for a new job. One thing, being a woman, you deal with a lot of how much you're going to get paid when you're going after a job, and really protesting that I'm worth this amount of money, whether it's your first job, your second job, or you've been in the industry for a certain amount of time. Really how to negotiate for a job of your interest and in your field as well. And then also having multiple streams of income. When I first started my business in 2009, I didn't realize how important it was to actually have multiple streams of income. I started my business, I had just recently worked at a payroll company, and I volunteered to get laid off, and I decided to do my business full time. So in 2009, I launched Prestige Concepts, and I started doing events. And at that time, probably a year into my business, they stopped hiring for events. They started looking internally, starting to get into interns and the marketing people to do events. So that's when I actually launched my website. And the person that I hired for my website did a terrible job. And I wasn't able to actually change the back end of my website. So every time I needed to change the back end of my website, I had to call him, which he purposely did, right? Because every time I called him, he charged me. So I had to personally learn how to develop a website and redevelop the website that I currently have. So I was like, oh, well, let me look at the sites of my clients. And at that time, their websites were terrible. They were old, they were non-responsive, they had like old pictures that was pixelated and things of that nature. So I said, you know what, I know how to do websites, even though I only did my website, right? That was the first website I ever done. And I started offering websites and marketing as a skill to them, and they said, oh, that would be great. And then again, they started hiring me not only for websites, but they started hiring me to do their events again, because as I was marketing their events, I was creating that website for that event as well. So learning a new skill and figuring out ways to obtain that financial security is really important. So not only did I get paid for events, I also got paid to do their websites. So I doubled that income just within learning a new skill. So really understanding how important technology was at that time, because before I was always interested in tech, but I didn't officially go to school to learn it, or I didn't take an after school program in it. I always say, when I would tell my mom I was interested in technology, and I would say I love computers and I want to build things because I was always really good in school, she would always send me to like a dance or a singing class afterwards. And I'm like, and people always laugh, but in certain cultures, that's where you go. You go to, the girls go to dance and art, and the boys go to sports. So either she didn't know about the classes, or she didn't know what it meant that I liked technology. So as I got older, I kept that yearning of learning technology, and that's how I entered into really doing technology and also developing websites. So understanding how important financial security is, especially at a young age, is really important. So creativity will build your brand. Does everybody know what a brand is? Yes? I'm asking, what is a brand?
It's something that represents like the values and the mission of whatever company or person or group of people.
Yes, exactly. So you have your personal brand, and then you also have your company brand, and both go hand in hand. That took me a long time to learn, because I was one of those companies when I first started, I focused on a company brand. I didn't have an identity outside of Prestige Concepts. So I was always behind the scenes, just working. And that was great, but nobody knew who I was, right? Nobody knew who the owner of Prestige Concepts was. They saw my work and they saw the people that I was working with. And I had great clients. I worked with the mayor of Philadelphia previously, Mayor Nutter, working on his campaigns, doing a lot of his social media and public relations. I did a lot of events with the city, but because I was so behind the scenes, nobody knew that I did that work. But at the same time, it was on me because I didn't personally brand myself. So it took me a couple of years within my company to actually step into the forefront, right, and start talking. I was always really shy in school, so I was just like, all right, well, at least I'm getting paid for it. But it's one of those things like, yes, you're getting paid for it, but imagine if more people knew who you were, right? If people knew your personal brand, that means they know your company brand as well, because if they don't know you, they don't know to hire you, right? So as time went on, I actually started intertwining my personal brand with my company brand. So that included speaking engagements, that included really teaching a lot of workshops on what I did, that included partnerships, that included sponsoring different events through my company, and speaking about my company at those events. That included adding my logo to different events, and that really changed my customer base as well, because not only did they see the personal brand, they now saw the company brand intertwined. So when they saw me, it was Tiffanie Stanard, CEO Prestige Concepts, not just Prestige Concepts. So intertwining both is really important because it helps you, one, maintain your customer base, but then it also helps you gain a new customer base. So I started getting different clients because like, oh, you did that. Yeah, I did. It was me. So, it really helps to really get out there and speaking and learning to do public speaking. So whether you're speaking on a topic having to do with your company or speaking on behalf of a client, especially in public relations, and also just really interacting with your customer base is really important so they can refer you and recommend you to other potential clients as well. So the biggest thing I had to learn is growing in technology, right? Like, how do you grow in whatever industry that you decide to go into? My industry was technology, so I had to figure out how to grow within that industry. So creativity opens the door to potential partners. So what is partners? Partners can be mentors. Partners can be actual partners that are a part of your company. They can also be potential employers of people that you're working with, and also investors in your idea or your company. So how do you meet the right people, right? How do you gain a certain client? How do you get that partner that would be the perfect person to work with? When I first started Prestige, I had a partner. Probably a year and a half in, she realized she wanted a job, right? Decided to quit. And I went from a two-person partnership to just me running a company and, working with our team. So finding the right people is really important. She can handle not understanding what money was going to come in. It's a really stressful thing sometimes when you're an entrepreneur trying to figure out where money's going to come from. So she decided she'd rather be a real estate agent. So she became a real estate agent. So how do you identify mentors? How do you get to the right people? How do you meet the right people? So I'll tell you a story of how I started working with Microsoft. So I made a plan. I said, I want Microsoft as a client. So, right, this Microsoft, I'm going to figure it out, right? And I have a radio show on 100.3 FM on Sundays. And I decided to, press normally gets you in the door, right? Normally you can go to an event for free and you can go and meet new people. So I decided I couldn't find any Microsoft employees on the East Coast that I could meet. I was emailing a bunch of people, nobody emailed me back. So I flew to California and I said, I would like to interview somebody for my radio show for Microsoft. I see you're sponsoring this great event. I would love to feature you this upcoming Sunday. Okay, great. So I interviewed two of the top executives of Microsoft for that event. And I said, I'm looking to do some things with you guys in Philadelphia. Do you know anybody that you can recommend? I know you don't have an actual physical office here. So one of the guys that actually lived in Philadelphia, but he worked virtually, was at the conference as well. So they actually introduced us. We talked for a few minutes. It was like 2 days before we was about to leave. He said, call me when you get home. And I said, all right. So we called and we talked for a couple of weeks. And then there was another conference coming to Philadelphia, Forbes 30 under 30. I'm not sure if y'all heard of that. Yep. So I was working with them guys to do social media marketing and also some press. So I said, Microsoft, I would love to do an event for you for free. And they said, free? I'm like, yes, you have amazing programs that nobody seems to know about in Philadelphia, and I would love to do 2 events for you for free. So everybody that I was trying to get in touch with, they were actually invited to that event. Excuse me. They were actually invited to that event. So everybody that I emailed for weeks that never answered me back came to my event. So we started interacting, we started talking, and it was like, we read your bio, we saw your website, you're doing amazing. We need to talk, we need to hang out. And I'm like, well, I emailed you about 4 times over the last 4 weeks. She was like, oh, well, I'll return it now. So she actually searched my email and saw that I emailed her 4 times, returned my email in front of me, and that following week we started having great conversations about all these different programs that entrepreneurs and young people do not know about having to do with Microsoft. Probably 30 days later, they made me a keynote speaker for one of their events in DC, and I'm like, great. And since then, I became a brand ambassador for Microsoft, and I'm also an official vendor under Microsoft. So not only do I have my personal brand that I'm representing them at events, and if you go to my website, you will see half of Microsoft everything. So I represent them at STEM, teaching girls about STEM, teaching people about their programs for entrepreneurs that I personally use, and then also actually helping them plan marketing campaigns and different openings that they now have in Philadelphia. So that took about a year, right, to actually gain that relationship and really build that relationship. But I made a plan of, I want to work with you. And most people wouldn't offer to do an event for free, but they knew how serious I was to work with them. So I didn't want to say, hey, hire me, compared to 30 other companies within the city that you can hire. But if I can do this event and all I need you to do is show up, you know somebody's going to listen to you. So there's really identifying people and doing something that's really creative, right? So I got into my radio show. So whether you have a blog, a radio show, nobody denies press, right? So press of your own personal blog is just as big as NewYorkCity.com or New York Times to people, because they don't know what your following is until you tell them. You can have 10 million people a month and they don't know until you let them know. So using whatever that you have at your disposal to get into the door of a potential mentor, employer, investor is really important, because you never know how that relationship is going to turn out. And even with the relationship with Microsoft, I didn't even think that big of actually being an ambassador for their program. I just said, I want to just do a couple of events and put you on my client list and keep it moving, right? But it actually turned into way more than that. Like every event that they have, Philly, DC, or New York, I'm booked for. And now, on top of that, doing events and marketing for them and writing blogs on blogs that millions of people are seeing, that even went beyond my thought pattern of what the relationship can turn into. So even as small as you think, situations that are supposed to work out actually turn into something a lot bigger, okay? So that's how you identify potential mentors. And even the women that I now work with are mentors of mine. Even though they're clients, doesn't mean they can't come to you and you can't come to them for different things. We're actually friends now. So to say I have a client, a friend, and I work with this company is really big, especially for somebody my age and, you know, our company as well. So creativity creates new titles, right? So when you're thinking of what title you're going to call each other, right? You have social media strategists out there that's been around maybe 5 years. You have technologist, right? That wasn't a word. There's a lot of titles you can call yourself, right? And especially when you're working within tech companies, you know, CTO, CIO, CMO, there's a lot of different titles. And how do you identify what you're going to be that expert in, right? So it's identifying your passions, identifying and defining what your skills are, but then also identifying your goals for the next 5 years. So as I decided to really focus on my personal brand and where I wanted Prestige Concepts to go in the next 5 years, 10 years, but then also identifying the multiple companies that I know I was going to create beyond Prestige Concepts. It was identifying everything that I'm passionate about first that can turn into individual companies. Some companies are something I want to keep, and some companies I actually want to get bought out. So you have the ideas that you're creating that you know somebody else will buy this idea if you get it to the right point. And then some will be like the babies that you see full grown and you keep for the next 5-10 years until, you know, you get an IPO. So I had to identify the things that I was passionate about. Technology, speaking, community outreach. I do a lot with youth. I try to continue the conversation. I probably mentor hundreds of kids now because every time I leave a class, I give them my cell phone number and they call me all the time. So I make sure that the conversation continues after I leave because what's the point of me talking once and you never seeing me again? So I try to make sure that whether it's on social media, through my email, or calling me, that we can continue that. So that's one of my passions. So one of my next companies is focusing on teaching kids about STEM and really how to become an entrepreneur as soon as possible to determine if that's something you want to do for the rest of your life. And then also identifying my skills. You know, being a self-taught front-end developer, identifying that I want to be, there's different ways to be in technology, right? You can be the idea person that finds a tech person. You can be the tech person with the idea. You can be the marketing person. There's a lot of ways to be in technology. So I had to determine what entrepreneur I wanted to be. Did I want to be the cute one with the idea or the cute one with the idea creating the idea, right? So I knew I wanted, and either one is fine. You know, a lot of women that are creating companies that they find the right team to bring it to life if they can't do it themselves. So I knew I wanted to be not only that cute girl with the idea, but I want to create the idea. I want to sit with the boys in the room and say, this is how you do it. And so that came into me knowing what I know, what I taught myself, but then continuing that education, taking more coding classes, you know, thinking beyond what I've learned over the last 5 years and learning mobile applications and learning data science. And now that I'm getting into wearable technology, developing products and product design as well. So I identified and defined my skills and what skills I needed to work on. And then also identify my goals for the next 5 years. As I mentioned, there's companies that I want to be bought out that I'm creating, and there's companies that I know I'm going to take past the next 5 years, that my team is going to grow until we pass it on to kids or whatever we're going to do with it later. So I made that plan of identifying my top 5 to 10 passions and how I'm going to utilize them per the companies I have now and the companies that I'm working on now and I'm working on later as well. So we're going to recap, but before I recap, I'm actually going to go around the room to have you introduce yourself, right? And tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm going to start with you.
My name is Zach Hogan. I'm a sophomore in the business school here, Finance International Business Study major. I'm personally interested in going into financial services upon graduation. I'll be interning at JP Morgan this summer, so hopefully it's a good benchmark. I've analyzed some of the particular parts of the industry and have noticed that I have an affinity for global wealth management and personal clientele portfolios. Hopefully we'll get that experience this summer. So.
Awesome. What about you?
My name is Fatima Dunya. I'm a senior, global interdisciplinary studies, gender and women's studies, and economics. I'm currently trying to go into the healthcare sector.
Okay.
Particularly health insurance, and then later on trying to get into becoming a health professional.
Okay.
So grad school is the end goal.
Okay. Awesome.
Hi, I'm Fatima Camara. I'm the president of the Edward Collymore Honor Society. I'm a senior biology major, Spanish minor, and currently applying for grad school to get into the healthcare profession. So
Awesome. Great. How about you?
Jasmine Serrano. I'm a senior computer science major. I'm in a 5-year program, so I'll be in grad school next year for computer science. And
Awesome.
I love technology.
Yeah. How about you?
My name is David Lewis. I'm also a senior. I'm a finance major, econ minor. I'm also president of the Multicultural Business Association, and starting in July, I'll be working, in sales and trading for Morgan Stanley. Ultimately, I think I see myself in some type of nonprofit atmosphere, hopefully dealing with child education.
Okay. Awesome. I'll just skip him.
I'm a senior criminology and sociology major. My bio isn't as extensive as that of everyone else, but grad school's on the list sometime down the road.
Down the road, yeah. All right. What about you?
Luis Huerta, finance accounting major, minor in real estate. I'm going to be interning at Jeffries this summer with some
Awesome. Hi.
Yeah, well, I'm not as cool as
Why not?
Swear. My flowers. I'm an English major, Africana, and Studies and Communications minor. I want to get into marketing, but I'm having a hard time as an English major, so I'm trying to figure that out right now.
Okay. So why are you having a hard time?
Because no one's really taking me seriously as an English major. I'm trying to figure out how to market myself right now.
Okay.
Branding myself, but it's been hard, so trying to
Yeah. I mean, the best way to market yourself is the fact that you can write because you're taking English, you know? Because most marketers are not great writers. They're more on the creative side that can do 140 characters, right? But the writers are more of the communications, the English majors that actually go into PR that can write those 3-4 page press releases that we see that I don't like to write. So yeah, that's your end. It's like I'm a great writer, so maybe just kind of giving them some marketing campaigns and writing different stories of creativity. What about you? Mm-hmm. Are you? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. I'm like high school. Cool. Welcome. All right. So we're gonna recap, and then we're gonna go around and see if you have any questions for me.
She had first question.
Huh?
You had your hand up first.
All right. So we're gonna wait till the end, and then we're gonna answer any questions. I'll sit in the middle with you guys, and we can talk. All right. So as I mentioned, so we're gonna recap a little bit. Creativity develops innovative ideas to obtain financial security. That's one thing, if I can leave you with that, is understanding how important financial security is. And that means multiple streams of income. You know, the biggest thing about being an entrepreneur is not the only thing that you can do. You can teach, you can be a speaker. You know, being a speaker is a lucrative business as well. And not only can you become a thought leader within your industry, but then also helps you get clients. I got more clients from speaking engagements than I've gotten at networking events, because at the end of the day, not only are they hearing about me and the person that's going to help run their campaign, but they're seeing more of my personality and how they would interact with me. So they not only become, an enthusiast person of what I'm doing, they also become a potential customer, or they actually refer me to other people because they saw me speak. How I got into South by Southwest, I spoke over the summer. I met a few people, and they called me back to be on a few panels because they remembered me from last summer. So that turned into relationships, and me sitting down with IBM, and now I have a meeting with them next week about working with their programs. I'm like, hey, sure. Which was unexpected, and they actually sponsored the panel that I was on over the weekend. So that was a great experience. South by Southwest was the first time I ever actually attended. So I left with amazing relationships, and I actually met someone from Microsoft there. And I was like, I do all this stuff with you guys. And she like, really? So she actually wants to bring me out there to Texas to speak with the Texas side of Microsoft, which is amazing. So you just never know who's in the audience and who is listening to you. So becoming a speaker, whether it's just on your subject, it doesn't mean you're speaking on everything, but speaking on your subject to make sure that people understand that you are a thought leader within that industry. And then also creativity will build your brand. So understanding the importance between your personal and your business brand and how they come together. So if you're building your personal brand, make sure you're building your business brand at the same time, and vice versa. Because I promise you, whatever you put out there personally is going to affect your business, and whatever you put out there to do your business is going to affect you personally. So it all goes hand in hand. And then understanding that creativity really opens the door to potential partners. So like I said, that's mentors, that's clients, that's partners within your company, that's employees. It's really important to network and understanding, like, how do I meet those people? How do I get to Oprah? How do I find her and ask her to be a mentor, right? How do you put that on the list and create that type of plan? Even when me working with the radio station, that I need to reach out to people, and sometimes the radio station helps and sometimes they don't. So I have to figure out ways to get people's number. And it was around the time that Nelson Mandela had passed, and we was trying to get all these different people. And the movie just had came out with Idris Elba. And I actually found his manager's number through searching and Googling. It was a lot. And I actually ended up speaking to his manager and getting him on the phone for the show. And it was literally me searching high and low, calling every number, calling contacts, calling in favors, and we scheduled him for the show, which was amazing. And I actually ended up getting his cell phone number because I needed somebody to talk to that day of. So, but they told me he changed it afterwards, but whatever. So, but I actually ended up speaking to him that morning because every time you have a show, you got to make sure you confirm the guests and speak to them in the morning to make sure they call in. So just having that type of creativity to figure out who am I going to get on the phone is really important. And then creativity will help you with new titles. So titles is one of those things that, I call myself a technology influencer because I understand the importance of technology, and I'm influencing people to either learn it or at least learn how to hire for it. And whatever company that you start or work for, understanding the importance of you're going to use a computer, you're going to possibly use a mobile app depending on the company, you're going to use social media, you're going to use all these different technology tools. So really understanding that it's important to identify who you're going to be within that company. And then if you want to actually develop skills in technology or improve them, such as what I'm doing to make sure that I understand every aspect of technology, is different fellowships that are available for you that pay you to learn how to do these things, and it allows you to try it out, right, to see if you like it, and then you get a stipend to continue. And then, like you said, you're in computer science, so why not try a fellowship? You're learning and you're getting paid to learn. And then you have these online classrooms that I personally take, Girl Develop It, which is located in Philadelphia, and they offer classes for young women throughout the city, downtown in Philly, and they're great classes. And then you have Code Academy, which is online, and they have a lot of free and some are paid classes that you can just do an hour a week just to see if you like it and continue the conversation. And then you have these different organizations, the National Association of Self-Employed, which gives you scholarships and grants to actually learn a new skill. So whether you're looking to go back to school or grow your business, they actually offer you grants and scholarships as well. So even if you wanted to try it out and, let me try being a self-employed and figuring out if this is something I want to do, why not learn a new skill through associations such as that? But then you also can start your own chapter, right? There's a lot of chapters within Philadelphia, meetups that you see online that people have started just to kind of gain interest and see and meet new people. There's a lot of meetups that I'm a part of that focus on women, focus on Black women, focus on entrepreneurs, focus on marketing, that you can really just kind of figure out what your interests are and bring them all together. All right, so here is my contact information. So that you have my personal website, which is tiffaniestandard.com. You have my company information, social media, and I'm on Facebook and all that, so my name is the same on everything, so you can find me. And that's my email, so please take it and email me anytime. And we're going to get into questions now. So does anybody have any questions? Yes?
The process of finding your passions and your skills and your creativity, how long does that take for you?
Well, I just turned 30, so let me think. Well, I've always known that I love marketing, right? So your passion is something that whatever you can't stop talking about, right? So I had to think about, as I was creating a company, what is something that I can't stop talking about, right? There's something I think about every day. It's something you have to talk to your employees about. You have to talk to your team about. It's literally something you talk about all the time. And that's normally what your passion is. I can talk about taglines, commercials all the time because I get so excited when I see a really great commercial. So that's how I knew I loved marketing and branding, because when I see, insurance commercials and Chick-fil-A commercials, I get excited. I'm like, oh, I should have thought of that. So that's how I knew marketing was one of my passions, right? And then my other company focuses on wearable technology. I love products, and I've always loved product design, and I love tech. So when you bring those two together, that's wearable technology. So you're adding technology to that product. So that's something I've always been into. Even when I was a kid, I was inventing different things and taping stuff together. So I've always was creating products, but I just decided to go into it as I got older. And then another project that I'm working on is focusing on financial aid. and really focusing on the importance of grants and scholarships and really finding people money, because one thing when you are in marketing, people always ask you to help them pay you, right? People always ask you about sponsorship and money and things of that nature. So it was one thing that is so much money out there that people don't know about, that I really wanted to help people understand the process of gaining money from other companies. So your passion is whatever you can't stop talking about. And those were like the top 3 things that was always really important to me, that I can wake up and be excited about and go to sleep and still be on my computer excited about it and do the same thing the next day. So I had to literally identify, and I would just write down like, okay, this is what I've been doing it for the last 5 years. And even redefining what Prestige Concept did, because when I first started, we mainly focused on events. I didn't love events, but I did events. But when I got into the marketing side, I loved marketing. So we really focused on that. We still do events, but my other part of my team does the events. I don't do the events anymore because I don't love doing events anymore. So, but when it came to a marketing campaign, I can come up with a marketing campaign in 10 minutes because I can see it, run it down for you, write it out, and we can get started the next day. So that's how I knew what my passions were. Anybody else?
Although you don't love it, can you kind of talk more about the event planning aspect? Like what, in your opinion, makes a successful event, and what are the components, kind of what's your thought process when you have to plan an event and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first started, I loved it, but it just as time go on, you know, like the whole process and the vendors and all that became a little bit of a headache. But what makes a successful event is definitely one, the team, because I know people that can half do an event and some people that can really go all out in an event. And then also really focusing on the marketing side, because you can have a great event all day, but if nobody shows up, it means nothing. And then really finding somebody to design an experience. You go to a lot of events that, you know, you have this VIP experience that the only difference is you may get a drink. And the other stuff is you just walking in and talking to people. So it's really about an experience that people miss. And what's the difference between me paying $175 or paying $50 if I decide to become a VIP? And I think that's what's missing with a lot of events that I've been attending. And I think that's why my love for it has stopped. Because the experience was lacking. Like, I didn't go home remembering this event. Like, how was the food? Did I meet anybody? Did we take great pictures? Did I have a full experience? Did I walk into this corner and do this? Did I walk into that corner and do this? Or did we just stand around in a hot room and, you know, have a conversation that I could have did that somewhere else? So it really is about that experience and what type of design you have throughout that room. And, you know, if you're dressed up, what are you doing while you're dressed up? Or if you're dressed down, can we have something more interactive? You know, the best events I've been to haven't been local. They've been in other cities and different conferences. And, you know, I'll get my creativity like, oh, we should have done something like that. So I think it depends on who's planning it. But it has to be that creative type of event that you leave there saying, did you see this picture? Like, you know, like you can't wait to get the pictures back from it. It what makes a good event. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. As an African American woman, like, what have been some of the challenges or some of the difficulties that you faced trying to get people to receive your ideas?
Well, it's a couple things. It's being a woman, being a young woman, looking like I'm like 20. It's a little bit of everything, right? When you are dealing with clients and trying to get clients. So it really is, and that's why I think for the most part, when I first started my company, I did stay behind the scenes because I felt like I looked so young, and at that time I was, that I felt like I had to overprove myself. So I was like, before I step out and before you know who I am, I'm going to stay back here and do this work. So when I step out, I have all the experience, the contacts, the mentors that I need for you to take me seriously. Now, years later, they still don't take you as seriously as you want them to. But I learned how to come to people. Like before, when I first started my company, I would go to people and say, you should hire me. But I didn't know why. I know I was great. I know I can do marketing, I can do events, I can do websites. But I didn't give them a reason to hire me besides that, because there were 20, 30 other companies, 20 plus years experience that can do the same thing. So if I approached a client, I came to them already with a plan. I came to them already with what was missing. I didn't need them to tell me. I told them what was missing. And that's what's the difference between somebody coming to them versus me coming to them. I had a full plan of the same thing I did with Microsoft. They knew they were missing stuff in Philly, but it wasn't in their dark pattern or in their, list of things to do. And I said, well, I'm going to do it for you because I already know these things are missing, and I'm following up with these companies and I'm telling them about your program, already an ambassador for you without getting paid for it. So I came to you already letting you know this is what's missing, and I showed them and I created a plan and I just did it. So that's the difference now. I come to people with the full plan if I'm approaching them versus them approaching me. So when I get big names such as a Microsoft as a client, other people can't deny my skill set because they're not going to just hire me just cause. Yes.
How did you get from a college graduate to now being a CEO? I'm assuming you worked for a company or something after college, and then when did you know that you wanted to have your own company, start your own company, and then how'd you go on from there?
So I actually did it backwards. I started my company before I went to school. I only went to school because at that time I was working for a company that offered tuition reimbursement. If it wasn't for that, I wasn't sure if I was going. Not because I did bad in school. I got honors through grade school and high school, so I was already, really smart, and I finished a little bit earlier than a couple people in my class because I started early. I started school early. So I actually moved out of my mom's house early as well, so I was already working. So I switched. I knew I didn't want to be like a broke college student. So I started working. I'm just saying, I did. At that time, right? So I was ready to leave. So I moved out. I was already working. I was working a bunch of little jobs that I hated, and I was doing payroll. I was a bartender. I did a bunch of different things, but I always had my company part-time. So then when I got hired as a payroll specialist for a gas company, I was actually the youngest person in the department. I was there for a few years, and it was in the process of laying people off. So they asked if you want to get laid off or you want to volunteer to get laid off. They actually gave me an option because they was laying off 2,000 people. So I volunteered. I was the last one hired anyway, so probably it's going to be me. But I decided to go early. So I left with like a pension and all these different things that they give you as a package. So then at that time, I decided to do my company full time, but I always had it part time. But that opportunity, I was bored. Everybody was like, why are you leaving? Because, they've been there 20, 30 years, and I was the youngest person there. And I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I have no kids, I'm, living on my own, let's do it now. And so I did that in 2009. So I actually did a little bit backwards to most people. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
I have a question about the personal website because I've heard that people do it. I've never, for me, I've never thought about doing it. Can you kind of speak to the benefits and why you kind of decided to have a personal website?
Sure. I want to show you. Is the internet on?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. Does it work? No? All right, let's see. I'll show you my website and the reason why I decided to do it. Yes, it? Okay, good. There we go. All right. So I decided to do a personal website because a couple of reasons. One, I couldn't put everything I was doing on my business website because it had nothing to do with my business. It had to do with me talking about my business, but it had nothing to do with my clients. So I needed to create this personal website to, one, obtain that personal brand that I was talking to you about, but also to really talk to people about what I'm personally interested in and really talk to people about what I can do for them. And then me becoming a speaker, like I said, leads to me getting clientele. And if you can see, I have my company information, Prestige Concepts, we are MENT. I have my radio show, so everything links back, but this allows me to really talk about everything I do that leads into my business and how I run my business and why I run my business and the mentors that I have, the mentees that I have, the press that I get. It's almost so much you can put on your business website besides client information and team information. So this allows me to talk about when I spoke at the PA conference for women, or talk about, you know, being voted one of the 100 women in the world or something, whatever they call me. So just talking about, you know, and I just became a brand ambassador for this diamond company on HSN with Sharina Williams. So like this allows me to really get into deep conversation about it, and it leads into everything that I do. And then I started a tour. I did a speaking tour, a national speaking tour last year, talking about finding a voice for technology, the importance of technology. So this really allowed me to talk about Tech Week and all the events that I did and all the stuff. This is one of the biggest events that I did with Microsoft. This was one of my favorite events with Microsoft. It was 300 girls learning to code. Their background was amazing. All these girls that we were teaching in one day in New York. This was like the best event ever. So I can't really do that on prestigeconcepts.com, but I can do that on here and me recapping it and really just showing you I do a lot. So this was the place to put it. So yeah. Yes.
So you said knowing, so for your goal for the next 5 years, and you said some companies that you want to be bought out, some that you want to keep. So when creating those companies, like how do you know which one eventually that you want to be bought out and which one you want to keep?
That's gonna be depending on how much money they offer me. But seriously, it really depends, because when you're creating companies, they really are your baby, right? You know, you don't want to part with your baby until they're at least an adult, as they say. And it really depends on the team. It depends on what stage I get the companies to. It depends on what's offered to me. There's a lot of companies that are doing well that, you know, could have got bought out earlier, such as Snapchat and all those different companies, but they decided to keep it because they saw the potential in it. So I think it depends. Like when you're starting a company, you have an idea for it. You think one way, and 6 months later it can go the next way, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this company was going to turn into 10 million users a month. And if you know you have that, imagine what you can do with it yourself. So it's one of those things where if I think I can do a better job, I'm going to keep it. If I think somebody else can do a better job, I'm going to sell it. I think it depends. Yes.
What is one or two things that you wish you had, you know, previously when you were younger or before starting your business that now you know today?
Two? I'll say about 20.
Maximum two.
Maximum two. All right, I got to narrow it down. I wish I knew before starting my business anything or business related.
Anything.
Okay, say anything. One, I wish I knew more about financial aid, right? I wish I knew about the money available for school. I think dealing with, you know, whether it's high school or college, the counselors and the people within those schools do not tell you about the debt you can create with school, right? They do not tell you about you pay $100, it's going to turn into $200,000 5 years later. So I wish I knew that. And my mom didn't know that as well because she didn't go to college. So just that knowing that so many things affect your decisions at 18, 19, 20 years, 10 years later. So I really wish they told us about that. And the conversation I had with the Camden School District yesterday was about preparing them for college and preparing them for careers. And I stress that over and over again. There's scholarships, there's grants, there's so many different ways to pay for school. And one of the girls said, I'm going to the Navy so I don't have to pay for school. I'm like, that's the only reason you're going to the Navy? That's not a good reason. And myself and one of the teachers gave her our cell phone number. I'm like, you're going to call me, because if that's the only reason you're going to the Navy, don't do that. Like, that's not the reason to go. Like, if you're going because you want to fight, you want to be strong, you know, that makes sense. But don't go because that's the only way you think you can pay for school. And she was one of those bright people that got into multiple schools, but she just didn't know how she was going to pay for it. So we stressed a lot of the importance of understanding that. And then the second thing would be either finding a partner early. Like I said, I had a partner earlier, and then I just decided to do it by myself. Or finding the right mentor earlier, because I didn't get mentors until later on. In my business, I kind of was just going with the flow and periodically talking to people. But I didn't find the right people until years down the line. Now I have amazing mentors, partners, friends that are in the same mindset that I have within business. But the reason I got turned off, I found a mentor, this one lady that I wanted to work with when I first started my company. She was doing events, young black women. I was doing events. I was, maybe 8 years younger than her. And she said, why would I help you if we're in the same business? And that was the last time I looked for a mentor. So that was about 5 years. And I was just like, this is the reason why it's hard to be an entrepreneur, right? Like, you go to people, you ask for help, and we may be in the same industry, but I'm just starting. You've been around for a while. I'm just asking for advice. I'm not trying to be a competitor. Let's do a couple events together. Let's talk. And she was not helpful at all. So it took me years later to actually ask another woman for help, and men as well. Men always try to help you anyway, but that's a whole nother story. But you want a woman to help you as well, especially if they're in similar situations, that they understand the trials and tribulations of being a woman, a young woman, and a black woman within whatever industry, but especially within tech and marketing as well. So I would say finding a mentor, the right one if you can, multiple, 100 if you can, or a partner, because they could be a mentor as well, and understanding financial aid would be my two. Anybody else? Good? You have, yes?
Yeah,
She had a finger like, I asked you.
what is like a motto or a quote or something that you live by?
That's a good one. I live by a couple, actually. I have a whole mirror of quotes that I look at every morning when I wake up. One quote, I'm trying to remember it now. Wish I had it on my phone. It's about, I want to create things that people do not forget and they wake up thinking about, right? So whether it's a product, an app, software, like I want something that people are constantly using, right? And a quote that I personally created that is actually on my website called Accomplish Forgotten Dreams, right? So that means one day I woke up, and this goes into the passions question. I woke up and I was trying to figure out my next steps, trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do with Prestige, what other companies I wanted to start, just kind of all the different things I was passionate about. And I wrote this whole quote on Facebook, and I said, I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, I'm passionate about helping people, I'm passionate about young people, and I'm passionate about helping people achieve their dreams. And I'm passionate about accomplishing dreams I forgot to dream about, because I had this crazy dream of all the stuff I can do, and I woke up, did this whole spill on Facebook. To shorten that, it's called Accomplish Forgotten Dreams, because being an entrepreneur, being in tech, being a woman, speaking about the things that I speak about were things I forgot to dream about as a child. I didn't think about doing this because my mom didn't do it, my dad didn't do it. Like, nobody in my family really talked about college as much. Nobody really talked about being a business owner. So I forgot to dream that I can be this person. And so that's my quote. Accomplish Forgotten Dreams. All right.
And on that note,
Thank
you so much.
You're
Tiffanie,
welcome.
Thank you.
Sure.